This morning, we are covering zip forms for new agents. So it's going to be the basics, getting started with zip form. If you have any questions, you can always unmute or you can throw it in the chat. Either one works so that we can actually try to work through some of this. If you have anything, please don't hesitate to ask, even though the basics of this is going to be geared toward new agent getting things set up so you can use it the way it's supposed to be used and etc. So we shouldn't have any issues with it. And the system, I've been on here this morning already, so the system is working. And I say that because ZipForm, Lone Wolf, the company that has it, is constantly doing updates. And occasionally when they do an update, parts of it don't function the way it's supposed to from time to time, or it might throw us off a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you guys have anything special, please, once again, just jump in and we'll do that. Let me share my screen with you. Let me just ask before I get started, if there is anybody that has anything special they're looking for this morning with this. Anybody have anything special?
Hi, Matt. Good morning. I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I started in the last zip forms training that you did a template where we could start. So I created my own template for 2 docs, but how do I get them to roll over into where all the other docs are? If that makes sense.
Okay, so you started a template.
Yes.
And what's the template going to be used for?
It was just the IABS. So everything's filled out for me at the bottom.
Okay.
And there was one other that I did. I don't remember which one it was offhand.
Okay. So generally speaking, any of the forms, when you start a transaction, when you start a template, whatever you put in that one form carries over to the others as long as the fields match, like agent's name or brokerage name, all that generally carries over. The listing agreement, the buyer rep agreement, and the 1-4 family contract are the strongest forms in the system. So for example, if I put on the listing agreement, if I put Remax Elite, Mac McFarland on the signature page, it's going to show that same thing. And it'll carry over to the other forms. The best way to handle that actually is at the very beginning of the transaction. I'm going to jump to the screen right quick just to show you. Go to my dashboard. So the summary page on a transaction, anything that gets filled in here will carry over into the forms because they're designed to link together in most cases. So if I plug in agent's name, right, that'll carry over. Company name, that'll carry over. Anything to do with the property itself will carry over into the forms if there's a blank for that. You know, like we don't have anything in the contracts for zoning, for example, but I could put that in here. But if there's a blank for it in the form someplace, it's supposed to carry over right from this. Years ago, we had what was called a cover sheet, and it worked the same way. It was 5 or 6 pages, something like that. And if you filled out the cover sheet, it would translate over into transfer over into the forms. But not everything worked. It had to be very specific. And I never used the cover sheet. I just if you fill out the 1-4, the listing agreement or buyer rep agreement, those are the strongest forms and they'll carry over almost every time. Almost every time. So when you build that template, if you'll start with the information about brokerage services and whatever form you're going to use next, the rest of them should automatically fill out. But the best way to do that is bring those forms in at the very beginning. And then, so you have all the forms you want to use and then go from there. And we'll touch base on that again here real quick as well. All right. One of the first things I want to start off with is if you, did anybody have anything else?
Mac, just to kind of touch base on what she asked, I think she's asking how to get those templates applied to new transactions. And I think it's just a field we have to select, correct? It's just when you create it, apply to transactions.
Absolutely. Lorley, if that, is that what you were asking, applying it to the transaction?
Yes, for some reason, when I do
Sorry.
that, it doesn't carry over.
Wow, okay, and that was the same issue we were having when we were doing it, where it was carrying over. It was not carrying over the information I put in, it was pulling up the other side of that, which had that RMEC or whatever it is. But I'm actually in the mission one, so let me just show you what should happen with that. If I wanted to go to transaction, for example, if I was creating a new transaction, I would, and this is for all of you, I'm going to go back to the new agent training here in just a second, but if I wanted to go in here and create a new transaction, then what I would do is I'd actually click on just new right here. If I was an agent creating a new transaction, click on new. Let's say it's a new listing agreement or a new listing. I put the name in here. And then, so normally also on the names, normally we will list the address if it's a listing or by name if it's a buyer. That's just been years of doing that. That's the way we've always separated the files out, but you can do whatever you want. When I go down here, you notice down here at the bottom, it doesn't really have anything. When I click on residential, it should add some templates at the bottom, right? So now you see those. So when I clicked on residential, status is active, and I have templates available. And here I can make a choice. My templates, which will be these two that are at the bottom, right? Templates automatically applied by admin. And just click save, and those forms that are in those templates are automatically going to come over. Now, if I don't want those, I can go here and select which ones I do want. Let's say I want a listing packet. That packet's going to come over, but these forms are automatically being applied, which needs to be corrected. Then I click save. All those forms are kind of come over, and anything I have in my templates are going to automatically be created in that transaction. And that's what we were trying to do last week. When I did it, it actually came up with, instead of having Remax Elite, it had RMEC, whatever on it. But this is in the mission one, and it'll be different than that. It loads quickly. There you go. So there's transaction names on the top left. As always, we have the documents we brought in from the templates, so they're already in here. And the folders, that's one of the things I was trying to show last week as well. I have this set up with the folders so that when an agent creates a new transaction, the folders for them are already there if they use this template. But you can adjust it whichever way you want to. If I pull up the listing agreement, it should already have all the information in it. If I pulled up, let's see, any of the ones, this is not as organized as what your guys' are in Corpus, because I put more time into that. This has been going on for a while, so this one's been changed. Anyway, they would have, there you go. So by using the template, by adding the template, so you create the transaction, but you add the template. And if you already have your template set up, and we'll touch base on that right now again as well. If you have the template set up where it automatically gets added, then it makes it so much easier for you. You don't have to think about it. You just click on new listing, templates are automatically added, and you go from there. And all the information you have already plugged into it should work for you. Okay. All right. Does that make sense? Maybe. right, so when I log in, for example, this is what I see on the screen, which is an important. What we want to do is make sure that you guys have everything set up for you. And to do that, to begin with, we want to go to the profile, make sure the profile, especially those of you that are new, if you have not played with this at all, the very first thing you want to do is set up your profile. Make sure your profile is set up to include your email signature at the end, at the bottom. Depending on the size of your screen, you may not be able to see that until you scroll down and make sure that you have that in here, because every time you email out through ZipForm, you want that signature to go with that. You have your sign-in security. And again, I've talked about the two-factor authentication, which I use on everything else. I don't use it on this, but I have it on a lot of other things. The forms that you have available and the form color, field colors. I don't usually mess with this. I wouldn't recommend that to you unless you have somebody who's colorblind, and then maybe changing those colors would work. The forms we have available, and again, this is through the mission office. So we have MLS GMAR in here. The Corpus Christi has that available now. South Padre Island now has that available, thanks to Melissa's efforts on that, putting that together. And then RGV MLS has that available as well. The settings, this is an important part. For those of you, if you're just getting started with ZipForms, please, this is one of the things that has to be fixed at the very beginning. One of them is digital ink is actually what we use most of the time. It's not anything extra. It doesn't cost you anything. It's part of the program, digital ink. It's the way it's set. Some people are dead set on using DocuSign. That's up to you. That is a benefit of NAR, but digital ink, which is a part of ZipForm, is automatically built into the system. But I want to make sure that you change the time zone to match Central Time Zone. And then down here, account preferences, how do you want it to?
Mac,
Yes,
I'm so
yes.
sorry to cut you off.
No.
I noticed on mine, I have it on Central Time Zone, but when I sent out a listing agreement to get signed, it came back with a GMT time zone. Should I call ZipForms about that? Or somebody in support?
You can, yes. Normally, so you sent it out for electronic signature?
Yes, sir.
You sign, and it came back with GMT. Yeah, it should not do that, because it should be right here, because this is the e-sign signature time zone, and that's what's supposed to be there. But it's the best bet would probably be to call them, and they're available 24/7, and they're usually real good about trying to get a solution to it, generally speaking. And off the top, there's a setting someplace that's causing that. And off the top, I don't know exactly where that's at. But normally, if you'll set this to Central, you don't usually have those issues. And we want everything on Central because it's based on where the property is located, not where the people are at. And that if it's not on the right time zone, that can be confusing for the consumer, is one of the concerns with it. Down here on the bottom, you have your landing screen, et cetera. This is another one. You want to make sure you change that. 5 is the minimum, but generally speaking, when you first start with ZipForm, it's off. So we want to make sure that we set it for 5. Every 5 minutes, it'll auto save, which is something you want to have happen. And then you can choose how you want other items done as far as your templates and et cetera here if you want to. Don't usually mess with that too much. You can link other accounts if you need to. And then we have, on this one, we have the home warranty integration added to this, which I think I've done on all of them, where we plug in, you can plug in whoever you want, but all it does is it helps, it makes it easier so you can contact them. You can order your residential service contract through ZipForm instead of having to go to the website. The whole idea of this, and I'm going to show one other thing with this as well. You can, the whole idea of this, everything that goes on within this transaction is in one place. I don't have to go to different places to get it. Everything's built into one, which makes it really unique. We don't have any title companies in here. if on yours, if you want to add a title company, you can go into select favorites. If it's not there, contact the title company, contact Zip Forms, put the two of them together and let them take it from there, or contact the title company and let them know. And then down here on the bottom where it has Young Alfred, I've talked about that one in the past. They actually just got bought out. They were just bought out by another company. But if you click yes, they will email every one of your contacts immediately to see if they want to buy insurance. So be careful with that one. And then notification settings. The settings that I have on here, I would highly recommend email notification and in-app notifications. I want email notifications more than anything. And so that's the reason I have it set up this way. This is for task checklist, email notification for Doc Inbox. I'll talk about Doc Inbox later on, but Doc Inbox is if you use that email address that's with Doc Inbox and you email me to my Doc Inbox, then I'll get an email notification saying there's something in there, which may sound kind of crazy, but what it does do is it allows you to not be inside Zip Form. I could be in something else and when I got the email notification, then I can go from there. Same thing I have set up with review, and you can set this up through Booge as well for the same thing. There's other items in here that we can use. Those are the basic ones we want to touch base on. We'll just leave that at that. Anybody have any questions on the settings? Right. So then as a new agent, one of the other things we need to do is this one. As a new agent, you should see listing agreement. If you go over to templates, you see listing agreement and buyer representation packages. If you don't see that, don't sweat it, but click on new, because you're going to build, this is templates, right? This is what you're going to build around every time you have a transaction. So you click on new, and you can have as many of these as you want. As I've said in the past, so we buyer package, listing packet, had some for investors by name, like Beller was one of the investors I worked with. So I had one for him purchasing and one for him selling. Because although the idea is it saves you time in the long run, and that's what you want to work with, right? So you can work with these. But if I click on new listing, for example, now let's say we call this 502 A Street, and it's residential. And when I click on residential, nothing's going to happen here except right here, it's going to change. See where it says automatically apply this template to the listing? So if I click on industrial, they'll change it to industrial new transactions or condominium. So you could have a listing packet for condos, a listing packet for residential, a listing packet for land, farm and ranch, whatever, right? And it's going to automatically apply anytime you click on the new listing. And as soon as you click on one of these little buttons here, it'll change to that one. So you want it to be whatever you do most often. So the whole idea is to make it easier for you. And on here, you can see allow agents to edit and delete applied from this template. So the way we have this set up is you pull over our information, right, into your template, and then you delete the files you don't need, the forms you don't need. And I've mentioned before, when I do the one for Mission, you guys just seen the mess that is. When I set that one up, I initially set it up with every possible form you could need for listings, every possible form you could need for buyers. When we set the one up for Corpus Christi or South Padre Island, we did not do that. We added in specific forms. So the agents are going to have to bring in additional forms if they need those, or maybe delete a few. But anyway, as soon as you click save, that template's going to be created. And now we're going to add the forms to it that we want in that packet. Let me delete this and do this one more time real quick. And the reason for that is because when you create new on a template side, you don't want an address in there. You want listing packet. I will apply and save. Because it's when you're going to use as you generically, as you do things. So when I click on add forms over here, that's a listing packet. So we all know that we're going to need IABS, right? So we find that. And we have two IABSs in here. They're actually the same, but one of them says seller and one says buyer, right? But they're the same. They say the same thing. So it's not like you're going to be messing things up there. If you don't know the name of the form, you can click on all and do it by category. Everybody see that one? So you can do it by category. If we're doing listings, we can come down here to listing addenda. We could do residential listing agreements, right? And then exclusive right to sell, for example. And then we can come over here to listing addenda and decide what we need to add into this one, right? You don't need to add a lot of the forms in yours if you'll bring over the one from the company. That should already be set up for you. The other one you can do is you can actually do it by alphabetical order, or you can do it by form number if you know the form number. And this is a perfect time, I think. If I go into the search button and I type in FDES, this one comes up, and this is the one I talk about quite often. It's the form description and reference. It's an excellent resource for remembering what the forms are and how they're supposed to be used. And I'll just show you that one real quick. So to explain every one of the forms, and how they're used. RFC is ranch, R is residential, F is farm and ranch, and C is commercial, right? So, and a lot of times I'll get agent, just like this one right here, amendment to the listing. Agents will say, I have a listing that's a farm and ranch, and I need to change the listing. What do I use? Well, it tells you right here that would work for residential, farm and ranch, and commercial, right? So you can do that on that one. So you've added your forms in. So the next thing you want to do is go in and fill those forms out, put your information in here so that you can use it. I'm just going to, it's just your information, right? Make sure you save it, or it'll auto save for you, but there's save on the left-hand side. And the idea of doing the templates, and you can set up the checklist to go with it. You can set up an e-sign template for it. You can do the whole, everything you want set up so that you don't have any issues with it, right? So what do you want to do with it? All right, so that's the basic on templates. Now let me show you from there. I want to go to the transaction itself. So if I was going to create a new transaction, somebody called today and they said they wanted to list their house for sale. I could go in here, I click on new. What is it doing? Come on. There we go. Click on new, there we go. So we have a new listing. Now is where I would type in what I want to call it. Like this one would be, let's see, 502 E. Smith, whatever. And then as soon as I click residential, you'll see the templates add, right? So here's the new agent one down on the bottom. So that's automatically going to be applied because that's what we said when we set up the template. And then when we click on save, now the documents that we just did will be in here as well. In this transaction, you see the name on the left-hand side, so we have that set up. So we created a template for it. We have that together, so that's not a problem. And all the forms are going to come over according to whatever's in that template. So create the template first, put all your information in there, all of your information, the company information in there. And if you put it in, if you put the documents in the template, for example, if you put the documents in order, it makes it a lot easier for you as well. So the information about broker services, a listing agreement, this certainly wouldn't be there, but your seller's authorization release, seller's disclosure notice, all those items, put all those in there so that you have that ready to go. And it's all in order, and it will autofill from the listing agreement. It'll fill up, it'll populate the other documents. Or again, you can come back in here to the summary and fill those items out. On the summary page, we also have the opportunity here to add or delete information, right? So let's say we already said it's 502 East Smith, for example. So we could do that. And it's trying to. So there's the property address. Now that property address will automatically go into the forms. We didn't have that a while ago. So just to show you, this is inside the transaction and it should automatically fill up, and we don't have an address for it here. It's not going to show up here because that's not a field for that, but we can click on the drop down and pull it in that way, right? And again, so if I'm on the summary page, which is where the basic information is, I also have parties up here at the top, right? You have all these little highlights up here. So if I click on parties, it's going to show me or the company as the listing broker and et cetera, right? If I have a buyer or if I have the seller on this side, because it's a listing packet, and I want to add the seller, and go to seller one and fill out. You guys see the form that just opened up? You guys see the form that just opened up? Yes.
I can't see it. All I see is where it says seller one, seller two.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you very much. So let me open this up and do a reshare on this one. Now can you see it? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here I can actually type in the seller's name and everything from right here and put all their information in and save it. Everything you need can be done from right here. So if we put in first name. Their email address, everything could go in here. Everything you need for them, and you click on save. You now have it here. So last week sometime there was an agent that had, they were going to email a form or a document to somebody, and I had made a comment about why don't you email this through zip forms? And the reason for that, you see in the top left where it says 502 East Smith, right? That's the transaction name. So if I go in here and right here where it says secure message, whoops, I have to have an email address in there. Let's see. Want to edit. Email address in here. There you go. If I have their email address in here, which I need anyway in the forms, right? And I click on secure message, I can now send them a message through zip forms. And so I can send it to the clients, right? Through zip form and or if I wanted to send it to someone outside of the transaction for whatever reason, I can also send it that way. So I can do the share on here and do it that way as well. And the reason that I recommend that is because right here, when I click on history, it's going to show you everything that's happened within that transaction. So if I email you as a buyer's agent, for example, through zip form, it's going to show in the history that I sent that to you. So I email you a request for the seller's disclosure notice, and I don't get a response. Today, what a lot of us do is we use our regular email, and then if something comes up, I don't have any proof that I did that other than going through my email and trying to find the history for it. But if I use this system, I'll have that history right here to track all of that. That makes sense to everybody? And that's what I was getting at last week. I don't remember who the agent was when I told him, why don't you send that through zip forms? That's what I was getting at. And so the other part of that is, if you're going to send me something to take a look at, hey, can you review this document, see what you think about this? If you're inside the document, for example, you can actually click on submit for review. It doesn't have to be just because it's closing or whatever, right? You can click on submit for review and say, Mac, can you please look at this or whatever, right? And you can click on approval or click on none, it doesn't matter. And just put a comment in here, can you please review this? I'm going to use this afternoon, or I'm going to show this to my seller, or what do you think about this? And again, if we do it through here, we have tracked that conversation. Because when you send it here, I'll get notified that it's here. I go in, I'll take a look at it, and I can respond to your form and to your comment that way. Is that everybody good there? So that adds a little bit to it. And to show you what I'm talking about, let's let me grab one of these that's closed. Let's see. So let's go over here to the dashboard real quick. So this was a form, right, that had been submitted, but if I go into the actual transaction, I can see everything that the agent has done within this transaction by clicking on history. And if something has been sent, like you see, she sent out an invitation to collaborate. She sent out submitting the 6-month warranty for new construction. So it has everything you did for that transaction. Everything's been done within the system. So there's a history of it. And we don't have to go back and try to put the pieces together if anything comes up. Everybody good there? I'm going to take silence as acceptance. We're okay.
I'm sorry, like, where do you go to look at the history on the transaction?
If I'm inside a transaction, it's on the right here where it says, you see, we're on documents right now.
Yes,
Right
sir.
here's history.
Okay.
And you can click on it. You can, these items that are at the top, you can click on just about any time, but it'll show you the history of that transaction. So you can see how she emailed out right here to that company. And on, if you click on show more, it'll actually show what that conversation was as well, right?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And again, that it allows us to have that tracking that we're supposed to have with all of this. All right, so one of the other things I wanted to just, again, looking at the new agent side of this is up at the top here, we have, let me return to the dashboard. Up at the top, we have what is called Doc Inbox. And if you click on Documents, there's an email address that pops up here. For those of you that are fairly new at this, I would recommend, because this is exactly the way I would have it if I was actually on production with dealing with the MLSs. I would take this email address and make it my MLS email address. And the reason for that is if you email that email address, I'm going to get something in down here on the bottom. And because I have the notifications set up, as soon as that comes in, I'm going to get notified you have a document in your doc inbox. It just makes it where I can keep everything in one place, is what it does, rather than having it in Google or Yahoo or Outlook or wherever you have it at, Gmail, right? It allows you to have it in here. So I would use that as my MLS email, right? And then inside the transaction, if we're inside a transaction, there's another email address that I would use on the transaction. Right here where it says email to TXN, that's transaction. So I click on that and there's an email address that I would use in the agent remarks, if the MLS permits it. Submit all offers to this email address. And what's going to happen is if you email that address right there, it's going to come into my documents. It's going to come right into the transaction. So I don't have to go move it. I don't have to do anything. It's going to come right in here. It's going to be at the bottom. It'll always be at the bottom, right? But it'll be in that document would have been in here. So if you were emailing a transaction or emailing an offer, it would be here. And then all I need to do is I can create a folder. So right here in this transaction, for example, let's say I wanted to create, I don't have the folders like I had set up on the template. I want to create a transaction for offers, or I want to create a folder for offers. I just click on add folder. I click on offers, type in offers. Click OK. And now I have a folder here and I can either move the things over or I can send them over. So for example, I can click here and click on move. And it's going to ask me, where do I want to move it? I want to move it to offer. Yes. So it'll move that form over to offer now. So I can do it that way, or I can just drag it over as well and place it in there. So the other thing is on the right-hand side, for those of you that are just getting started with this, you can organize these forms and put them in the order you want them in. And when I say organize, if you click on organize right there, I can, let's say I want wire fraud to be my first form. I can drag it up here. I can drag it up there and then click on done organizing. And if I don't like the forms laid out, this is the way I normally look at it. But if you don't like that, you can do it in line format. And you always have these drop downs, which will allow you to do other things with it. whether it's in that format or in this layout. Okay, any question about those two? That was the doc inbox was the primary focus there. All right, so one of the other things, and this is not an endorsement of it necessarily, but it works really, really well. And if I'm inside a transaction and I'm doing a listing, right here where it says disclosures is Seller Shield. And Seller Shield is designed to protect the seller. It's free, so you have to set it up and invite the seller, right? It's free unless the seller wants to get the insurance with it, which I would highly recommend. And what it does is it's you don't have to use it. You can use a regular seller's disclosure. But what it does is it allows the seller to make a choice. So when the seller's filling it out, if they click on, do you currently have flood insurance? Yes, it's automatically going to tell them they need the 1414. It's the way the system's set up. When I say it allows them to make a choice, if they want insurance, in case they were to get sued by the buyer or that there's a problem with the buyer because they didn't disclose something, Seller Shield covers, I think it's $20,000 on that. But they don't have to purchase it. They can still use it and not purchase anything. And I like it because it triggers, if I mark yes to this and it says you add comments, they have to add the comments. They have to put something in there. So it's a real good source. There's a Remax broker out of San Antonio that he requires every agent to use that. So the seller, you can send the invite to the seller and the seller can say they don't want to use it. That's fine, but we have documentation that they had that option. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's not our policy. I'm just sharing that's what he has. I think it's really cool. That's where I found out about Seller Shield several years ago, was in San Antonio. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Matt, can you show again how to do that Seller Shield just real quick?
Sure. If you're inside the transaction, there's a little this little where it says disclosures right there. It's on documents. And you just click on it. Let's make sure you guys can see that. And this little invite comes up. So you click on the little shield right there where it says disclosures. And this will come up and you fill that out and you send the invite to the seller. So they'll get an email saying, you've been invited to use Seller Shield. If you have a couple or extended family, you can add additional people to it. So they all get it because you want all of them signatures.
Is this
Yeah.
something that we can add in our template, like that it would automatically send the seller this thing?
No, it can't. You cannot add it where it automatically does it. You're going to have to click on it every time. But when you open up the transaction, it's going to be there.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So let's go back to the templates. I say that, but I'm assuming because each one of them is different. So yeah, I guess let me see how this works on a side template. So, because it'd have to be each one would have to be individual because you're going to have to add their name and email address and all that stuff. But it's inside the templates. It is here, so you can use it. All right. All right, so back over to the transactions, if we could, real quick. On this one, I also wanted to show you when you up here at the top, you have prospect. you have prospect, active, pending, closed, etc. You change this, and if you change this, this will add to tracking your pipeline, which is at the beginning of this, the dashboard that we opened up to. So you can work from that part of it really well, actually, and it'll help you keep up with what you have going on. And it'll help you identify your closing ratio and et cetera if you actually use the system the way it's designed. And once again, you can link this through Booj, so you have all of that in there to carry with it. One of the other things, since I'm here on this one, and again, this is inside the transaction. Here they have a fax cover sheet. We don't need that very often, but if you need to fax somebody something, there's a fax cover sheet here. You don't need to have a fax machine. You can fax from ZipForm. Excuse me. You can fax from ZipForm, so you can send the fax cover sheet to them, or you can print it and send it to them that way, or you can send it as an email attachment. So even if I'm going to email them, I have the opportunity to attach a fax cover sheet. And on that fax cover sheet, this barcode at the top tells, it's going to go to ZipForm, it's just going to go to that 866 number, and it's going to tell ZipLogix where that is, and it'll put it right in the transaction. And it'll come at the bottom of the, it'll be at the bottom of your documents here as well, is where that'll be at. If you need it. Don't normally need stuff like that, but just in case it's there. There's a question about checklists. Corpus Christi has checklists built in. You don't have to use them, but they're designed so that you don't miss anything. That's what they're designed for. I did not put those together. I think Matthew did when he was there before. I've not gone through those and seen what was there with it. I just know there's quite a few. But you can take that, because it's in there as a template, so you can take that and customize it for what you need, because there are some, and that's one of the reasons why him and I had talked about it before, was there's some of the teams or some of the agents were using a checklist, but they had a paper checklist. And I know when we first started to go to ZipForm, I was asked, do you have a checklist we can use to make sure all the documents are there? And I don't use checklists, but I've been doing this a while, right? So I know which forms to look for. Not that I don't miss something once in a while, but the checklist would be great for those of you that do business that way. All right, one last little thing in here on this one. Two things real quick. If you're going to send out a document for e-sign, we would want to make sure that we have the form, so you can either do the whole transaction, or you can do it when you're at the document side of it. It doesn't matter. You decide what it is you're going to send out for e-signature. And then when we're here on this screen, everybody see the screen for shows the wire fraud and the T47. Where do you see that one?
Yes, sir.
So right here, these are the forms you're getting signed. If you decide, oops, I missed something, you can add a form later, or you can click on select documents to include, right? So if I've forgotten one, I can add that in there. If I have an external document, let's say I have one in Dropbox, I want to include the survey or a copy of the survey, and have put initials on it. I can pull it up from that external document as well, wherever I'm saving it at. If browse for document would mean I'm going to browse on my hard drive right here, on my computer right here. So I can pull it from there as well. And then the other thing is, you notice these are not in any order, right? And I try to keep mine that way because of years of doing this. But if I click on this little box right here, oops, that's not what I want. It goes to the next one. I'm sorry. Yeah, we can do that. go to the next. Let me show you. This is okay. You have to have, they have to have a name and an email address to be able to make that work. And right here where it has the signing order, that's what I was getting at earlier. I did not. You can add a reviewer on here as well. Always must make sure you check the boxes, right? So we missed. So right here is the box I was getting at. Signing order is really important because if I want them to sign in a certain order, or if they've requested to sign in a certain order, please know that if I have this marked, 2 is not going to be able to sign until 1 signs. So if you're working with a couple, then if they said, like we had a couple where he said, send it to me first and I'll sign it and then she can sign it, right? And he was a truck driver. He did not get it signed like he was supposed to. And she couldn't do anything until he did. And he wasn't going to be stopping again for another, whatever it was, 8 hours, whatever. So on here, if today, if I got that, I would talk to him about, that's not really that important. Let's just get both of you signature and we can move from there. Right. And then at that point, I would want to just unclick that. And it doesn't matter who signs where, right? Both of them can sign at any given time. Just keep in mind, if that signature is yours, it should be after the client is signed, not before the client signed, right? Because our job is to make sure they've reviewed the documents and understand them and all that good stuff. Understanding is one of the key things with Trek right now. If I have that marked and they do want to sign in order and it comes up like this, I can just drag these and put them in the other order. It's not that big of a deal. Or I can use the drop down and change it here. Doesn't matter, right? And then you just click next and it'll take you over to the document where you can actually do the signatures and etc. Last week or 2 weeks ago when I was in Corpus Christi, there was a question about making changes to the form. And that can be done not as if it's a promulgated form, which is the 1 to 4, it's the contracts primarily. Those are really hard to work with because we're not allowed to make changes to them. Right? But it can be done, but it has to be done on the signature side. What I mean by that is at the bottom of the transaction, you'll get one that says they've already signed and they're doing a counter. So I tried to demonstrate doing it as a PDF because that's the way I used to do it. But Michelle and I worked on it afterwards, and you could actually do that where they've signed and open up the signing packet and make the changes there, right? It still has their signatures and stuff on it. And you make the changes there instead of after as a PDF, I believe is the way we did that. But anyway, so here you can drop and drag text over here that allows them to put that information in. Remember up at the upper right-hand corner, that's where you have who that's going to belong to. And it tells you right here who that's for as well. So you want initials on here. If that's what we have, as a requirement, we can add those on there. And you also have the markups. Remember, the markups is where we can draw a line through it. If yeah, okay. And you also have a pen available for certain items, and you can draw through that as well, right? And then send that out. When you click on next, it'll allow you to take it out. One of the good things about using eSign is it automatically reads the forms, it knows where the signatures and et cetera is supposed to go there. And unless you make changes, if you're using digital ink, unless you make changes, it's automatically going to have a date box with the signature, and it's going to read the signature from the transaction. Now, here's a lead-based paint addendum, and it doesn't have anything in there, so we will need to make sure that that's checked appropriately before we bring it over to the e-sign. And then you just click on next, and it'll take you over to where it's going to actually send them out and et cetera. And we're not going to send these out. So, all right, anybody have any questions on that one? I also had touched base on, I want to wrap this up here in about 4 minutes. We have inside that transaction, if you submit something for review,
Does that automatically go to you, or does it go to our admin first, or how does that work?
no, it automatically goes to me.
Okay.
If you wanted to email your admin, you could do that from here if you have them in here. So for example, on yours, and this is in missions, for example, if I open up a form and I wanted to send you something right here where it says send, make sure you've got that so everybody can see it. Yep. Right here where it says send, if I click on email, I have choices here. I have choices here on what I can use. I can use Zip contacts, service providers, Line Desk, whatever I'm using as my contact management system, right? If that's what I want to do. I have it set up with ZipForm, for example. For Mission, I use Jessica. And for Corpus Christi, I have Carrie on there. And I just click on that and automatically puts them in there. So you can do the same thing. And when you go to do that, right here on the left-hand side, that's your address book. If they're not in here, you can add them in here. Add in
So
a
we
new
have to, I'm sorry,
contact.
we have to, do we add them like manually, like individually, or is there a way to import them?
Your contacts,
Yes, sir.
let's see, right here underneath. So I'm on the main screen, right? Right here underneath contacts. You can actually decide, you can manually do it. That I know for sure. And right here it has import. So you can import it this way and it only pulls from these. It's all they have. They Google Contacts is out. You have Microsoft, Moxie, CSV is your Excel. So what are you using as a contact management system right now?
I had Google, but it doesn't allow me to use the Google Contacts anymore. So I guess I would just have to do it manually through ZipForm.
That, or you could take your Google Contacts and download them into an Excel file, and then upload that. That's what this is. But generally speaking, and you can choose from here as well. But again, Google is out for right now, which might be a good reason to use this through Booj, because Booj will allow you to use your Google Contacts as well. I have to check on that. See if we can link those together. Anyway, you can manually put them in if you wanted to and use them that way, or you could use them some other way. But import them, or you can create the new and just put them in here yourself with what you have. And that way, anytime you need it, anytime you're inside there and you're inside a form or whatever, you have the people in there. Like you could add the admin, like carrying them, for example, or if you're on a team, they could be added in there, or Nina, or whatever you needed could be added in there as part of your email. For myself, all you have to do is within a transaction, just click on review and I automatically get that. So you can message me through that system. Everybody good there? So the last part of this, if I could, is that each and every one of us have access to the mobile. And when you log in with the mobile version of ZipForm, what you'll see is it's a little round circle with what looks like a phone or whatever, and has little wires over the top of it, or like volume. And it'll actually allow you to do everything we just did on your phone or on a tablet instead of being at a desktop. And that makes it so much easier if you're out running around or you're out of town or whatever the case is. As long as you have connection to the internet, you can get on ZipForm and do whatever needs to be done. And everything we just went through, you can do on the mobile version, which again is a package that comes with, or a part of what comes with our brokerage account, is allowing you to do that. But you need to download the app. You need to download the app to be able to do that. And I was, let's see. No, that's not. And besides downloading the app, we need to make sure that on the product side of it, you have the mobile, and that's ZipForm Mobile Edition, which is right there. Shows everybody has it. That's on Mission Office. Corpus Christi has it, and so does South Padre Island. So if you're not able to get it to work, just let me know. But the biggest part is you download it. The login is going to be the same as yours that you have for ZipForm, and then you'll be able to have access to everything you have on tablets or phones. All right. Any questions about anything we covered so far? So if you're a new agent, one of the things I'd ask for you to do is first off, get your profile set up, get your templates set up, customize the templates, put all your information in those templates so they're ready to go. All you should need to do is add the client's name and information, and then you should be ready to go, right? I'll show you one last little thing here. So this is my old ZipForms account. And when I click on templates, this is what I was talking about. Listing info, FGMS is one of the companies I work for. There's Beller Buying, Beller Selling, Vera and Harris. These are all investors that I worked with before. So set up templates so that all you have to do is when you go in to create a transaction, you click on new, just like we just talked about, right? And those templates will automatically appear for you so that you have what you need. And it will save you a whole lot of time in the long run. A lot of time in the long run. All right. Anybody have any questions about anything we covered?